why was it so important for you to write a book for kids?
Yeah, so the Great Southern Reef, it was co-authored by a Deakin colleague, Paul Venzo, and it was off the back of a COVID idea. So we went into, as we all know, went into lockdown. We were all working remotely. It was quite a stressful time for many people. And one of the things that I was at home with my young children and noticing, I was reading a lot of children's books at the time, that there wasn't many ocean-related books that connected my children to their coastline. So there's, as a marine biologist, I obviously have a library full of lots of ocean-themed children's books, a bit biased in that regard, but a lot of them were tropical representations, and it was frustrating for me to read those stories to my children when they wouldn't necessarily see a turtle if we were to go for a snorkel in our local marine ecosystem. And knowing, education is a passion of mine. I've been a high school teacher. I've worked at an aquarium. So connecting people to the ocean is something that I've always wanting to do more of. And the children's book idea came from that, was that how can I bring that local temperate marine environment to the households of all the Australians living near the coast. And so we pitched the idea to CSO Publishing, and they took the idea on, and 2 years later it was published. So it was really exciting. And the great thing is there that, I have data that there's over almost 3,000 copies have been sold, and that is worldwide. We know that's headed off into countries like Norway, Brazil, the US. So it is reaching beyond the Australian homes, which is super exciting.
Well, as of last night, there was 3,001 copies because I ordered one, and I was really hoping at this section of the show the doorbell would ring and I'd have to answer it and then bring out the book that I just bought. I'm very much looking forward to reading that to my son tonight. So thank you very much for writing something about our local waters. One of his favourites is Magic Beach, which hopefully yours also turns into a feature film and a stage show.
Well, you can only hope. And the main protagonist of the story is Professor Seaweed. So if they do need someone to play that role, I know someone.
Now, you also bring art into your education work. What role does art play?
Yeah, so art's super interesting that, going back to my comment about wanting to connect as many people as we can to the ocean, that comes back to the reason as to why to do that. And it's a concept called ocean literacy, and that means what does the ocean influence have on us, and how do we influence the ocean? And finding connection with the ocean doesn't necessarily have to be scientific concepts all the time. I think we've sort of been stuck in that little bubble of needing to know how the ocean operates, which is great because we do as a scientific community, but how do we then translate that to the wider community in a way that they can engage with? And sometimes those science concepts and facts may not hook everybody. And so art, storytelling and different ways is an alternative way to build that connection. And that's why I'm really passionate about working with various artists to try and break that lens of science communication can be done in many ways. And it's tapping into different communities that may not have been engaged in scientific facts as a way of communicating.
So you said you were a school teacher. What years did you teach?
So high school teacher. So I was a high school teacher for year 7 all the way up to year 12, and I taught in both Victoria and Queensland, so 2 different states. And I was mostly science and maths, of course, naturally science. And I'm very excited that I brought a lot of marine flavour into my teaching. So there's a lot of seaweed pracs that my students had to undertake with me.
So the seaweed has been a part of your life for a while then?
It certainly has, yeah. It's over 20-odd years now. It started off doing the seaweed project for my honours, which was a research project that I did after my bachelor had finished up, and that then transitioned into the PhD, which was on seaweed. So it sort of started then, and even though I've had different career pathways in between and went up into the tropical world of Australia, it's always been there as my driving passion for a lot of the things that I do in life.
Awesome. So you're a scientist, a children's book author, a science communicator, an academic. Where did you get your start to eventually become all of these things?
Yeah, so my I grew up in a small country town in up in northern Victoria called Kyabram. It was close to several rivers systems, so the Goulburn and the Murray River. And my family loved nature, loved being outdoors. So I spent a lot of time on the Murray River for school holidays, going camping, fishing with my dad, and just had this immense connection with nature and being around and in water. And I like to say that it was thanks to my family that we had the opportunity in the 90s to travel around Australia for 6 months. And during that time, I got to see some of Australia's spectacular coastlines and reef systems. So visiting the Great Barrier Reef, visiting Ningaloo. And as a 14-year-old in the water snorkeling, and a marine biologist as a tour guide showing you all these different things. My mind was blown away. A, I could see the bottom because on the Murray River, if you're swimming in there, you cannot see the bottom. And B, this amazing, seeing all these different patterns and colours and behaviours of fish and invertebrates all interacting with each other, and seeing this guide and having all this knowledge and being so passionate about telling somebody else about it. I remember getting back onto the boat, turning to my mum and dad and say, I'm going to be that one day. And so I always like to say that I travelled downstream to become a marine biologist. So started in the fresh and went down into the marine, and recognising that water is all interconnected. So the freshwater systems, even though that's where the origin passion sort of formulated, it's certainly recognising that's all interconnected, that the freshwater does eventually wash up into the ocean. So, influences up where my home roots are. Whatever we do up there, whether it's agricultural or any other systems that might be using that water, that it does impact further down into the ocean too.
What came first, the love for science or love for the ocean?
Probably water, and then the ocean, and then the science last, if you can believe that. I did not particularly engage with science at high school. I think because I could see the connection of water and science coming together at that point. I loved all the PE outdoor ed type subjects that I was doing. So I think this science came later because when I went to university to study marine science and freshwater science, that I suddenly went, I can see why those science concepts make sense now, because I've got the passion behind it. We're doing it in a context of water. I think the science sort of fell into that as I went through my studies at university.
What were your biggest challenges in starting a career like this?
I think the biggest challenge for me has been, I've been very, very fortunate in my career. I've had wonderful opportunities, wonderful positions throughout my lifetime, and I'm very, very grateful for all of that. But one of the challenges for me is not necessarily that's impacted me personally, but seeing the next generation and the challenges that they now face coming into such a changing climate, and really passionate about mentoring the next generation to face what they're going to face into the future. So that's sort of the one challenge that it's not so much of a burden, but I'm empowered to help be a driver and a changer of that. And I guess one of the challenges that we have as the scientific community is trying to change policy and make the impact into that government level. And sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge, and navigating through that space, understanding how government and politics work has certainly been something that is new to me, and something I've been embracing of late as well. And I think it's something that I will continue to do into the future as well, is be that scientific voice and keep lobbying for change.
Supporting girls in STEM has been a big passion for you. Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, so that's super important for me because, as said, growing up Northern Victoria, didn't have a huge amount of people coming to our school to show us what career options could be available to us into the future. So for me, super passionate about building that visibility in schools, and you can't be what you can't see. That's the motto that I like to take on. So I go into schools to chat about being a marine scientist, chat about STEM, and in doing so, hoping for them to just go, all right, might not want to be a marine scientist or a seaweed specialist, but this person's just come in and has been super passionate about a role. Maybe there's opportunity for me to find my passion and find my career, and whether that's through STEM or something else is where I sort of see my job done there. And just from an Australian perspective generally too, is that we need more STEM professionals into our workforce to drive that innovation and that technology that Australia needs into the future. So, just chipping away at doing that is something that I'm really passionate about, and particularly focusing on girls, because girls' engagement in STEM tends to drop off when they get to high school. So, trying to go into schools, particularly around that year 9, year 10 age, to hook them back into, where they're passionate about this, and showcasing that or misconception of what STEM might be for that age group, and bringing back the fun of what STEM can be, and yet being that visual presence in those schools that girls can sort of see, and be a role model perhaps for them when they go to make those career decisions in the future.
So in engineering, you have an 85 to 15 men to women breakdown, but in the aquatic science space, it's closer to 50-50. Why do you think there's that ideal ratio in your area? Yeah,
so there is a 50-50 bubble. Preface that with that tends to drop off in leadership. So the higher, if in those leadership roles, you then start to see the skew of more males to females. So I think we definitely have the equal spread in the career workforce in the marine industry or aquatic industry. I think it drives aquatic sciences, drives the empathy of the interest of what females can bring to those roles, particularly on the conservation fronts and restoration aspects of aquatic science. So I think that's sort of where that 50-50 has come into play. But what's really important is trying to empower those females in that workforce to step up into those leadership roles, or give them the opportunity to step up into those leadership roles into the future, because we are starting to see that, if they do go off to have a family, they have that break in career, and then a sort of, step away from that, and then perhaps won't get that opportunity to do that leadership. So, I think it certainly does drive it through the empathy that a female can bring into those aquatic sciences, as to why that might be that 50-50 split that we're starting to see, which wasn't always the case, but it has got to 50-50 now, which is great.
So tell me about your work at the Queenscliff Marine Science Centre.
Yeah, so down at Queenscliff Marine Science Centre is Deacon's research and teaching hub for everything marine, which is fantastic. So I'm a lecturer down there at the centre, where I do a mix of teaching the next generation of marine scientists as well as research. And I've got a research team based down there, and we focus on two aspects of research that I'm passionate about, and that's ocean literacy and kelp restoration.
And you've got Swan Bay right there that you can do your field trips outside the door.
That's exactly right. So our students, when they come out to our centre, it's about a 40-minute drive from our main campus here in Geelong, and there we have the opportunity to go down to Rocky Shore, which is 5 minutes away. We just step out the door and we have a Ramsar listed wetland system, Swan Bay, at our doorstep. And then we've also got the opportunity to go out onto Port Phillip Bay with our marine vessels. So our students are incredibly lucky to have those opportunities to gain that field work experience, as well as our research team that's based out there. There's probably about 50-odd different academics and PhD students and honours students that are based out there conducting research along the Victorian coastline. So having that as the central hub for that research is absolutely fantastic, and we have that synergy of all working collaboratively together to try and solve some of those challenges that our coastline is facing.
And the building itself is beautiful. It's got the grasses on the roof, and what's happening underneath the floating floorboards there?
So it's grass. Everyone knows the building is that's one, the grass on top. So yep, and with the snakes that drop off randomly into the tea room space.
Oh wow!
But yeah, we also, it's a very unique system or centre, I should say, that it has fresh seawater on tap. So we have access to fresh seawater that comes in from Port Phillip Bay. We can access 800,000 litres per day to the site, and that water is pumped. We have holding tanks obviously on site, but that water then pumps into our building, into all our different laboratories that we have in there. And the water is actually under the floor. So that's why you walk along the floor and it'd be a little bit uneven. A lot of people are like, what's wrong with this floor? And it's like, that's where our seawater is below that. And at certain times of the year, we have to pull up all those panels and actually do what's called a pigging event, which cleans out those pipes to make sure that we're getting that fresh flow of seawater coming through. So it's a very unique system. And the idea too is that one side of the building is where all our aquarium systems are based, where we can do the research that we want to do. And then we can walk across the corridor where all our analytical equipment and lab spaces are. So we don't actually have to send out to another lab space somewhere else. It's just a one-stop shop at this centre. And we have different labs that are set up to do various different research. So you've got a nutrition lab, we've got a genetics type lab. And so there's lots of different spaces that we can use and work together.
And it's parts of it are open to the public?
Yeah, so the centre is a co-located facility. So the Victorian Fisheries Authority are the main caretakers of the building. So Deakin actually has a long-term lease with the VFA, and the VFA, the Victorian Fisheries Authority, they have a marine and freshwater discovery centre, which is their education centre for the VFA, and that's located at the front of the centre, and that is open to the public usually during high tourism times like school holidays and over the summer period, but more so it targets school groups to come in and do excursions and different activities with them. They have a small aquarium space, teaching labs in there, and they also go out into the local marine environment and do snorkeling, kayaking and vessel experiences with different schools around the region as well. And you walk to work every day and there's always some bus turning up with another school group, and it's just great to see the children turning up as I'm turning up for my work day, that they're super excited and pumped for the day that they have ahead of them. And so it's a wonderful facility that the Discovery Centre is set up there. We also have other agencies that are located at that site too. So the Nature Conservancy have an office that's based there. We do a lot of collaborative research with the Nature Conservancy. And there's also a commercial group located on site too, the Victorian Shellfish Hatchery, and they grow spat for mussel and oyster aquaculture facilities across Australia. And the great thing about having all these different agencies located there is our Deakin Marine science students get to have exposure to those different industries, and a lot of our students will go and do work placement with these organisations, or even better, obtain employment with them into the future. So it's what we call a Victorian Marine Hub of marine science that's here in Victoria, which is fantastic.